Indonesia-Australia bilateral ties was established on December the 27th, 1949. Yes, and this year, both countries are commemorating the 75th anniversary of their diplomatic relations, and a series of events will be held throughout the year, highlighting the commitments between Indonesia and Australia to strengthen strategic cooperation in the Indo-Pacific region.
Indeed, Marissa, and the bilateral relations have given birth to a plethora of collaborations and opened up beneficial opportunities between the people of the two nations.
Yes, and to delve further into the Indonesia-Australia relations, joining us this morning, that is the Australian ambassador to Indonesia, Her Excellency Penny Williams, PSM. Good morning, Her Excellency.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for coming here.
Oh, no, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, gosh, 75 years of diplomatic relations. Tell us about the significance.
Well, I guess 75 years, it's something really to celebrate, isn't it? So we're really excited in the embassy that we've got a program of events to highlight the relationship. And I guess when I think about it, there's a sort of that diplomatic history. And actually Australia, very few people know this, but Australia actually was asked by Indonesia to represent it in the UN when Indonesia was striving for independence. So we were there as a partner from the beginning.
Yes.
So there was sort of those diplomatic efforts. But the other part of the story is that Australian workers on the ports in Australia actually refused to let Dutch ships that were at port in Australia return to Indonesia. So it was also quite a grassroots people level, a sense of support for Indonesian independence. So there's a lot to celebrate that's historical. There's a lot to celebrate about the people-to-people relationship. So we're really excited to be able, particularly this year, to have a range of events that highlights those sort of historical relationship, but really celebrates the people.
Yes.
So it was fantastic at the beginning of the year at just close to here at Taman Ismail Marzuki. We have this fantastic mural that was done by a collaboration between an Australian mural artist and an Indonesian mural artist, and it's fantastic because you can put your phone up against it and things jump out. Things jump out. We're doing something with the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra. Wow. We're doing the film festival, even bigger than better this year. Yes. We have another program of activities around our alumni, celebrating our alumni who are really the backbone of the relationship. As you can see, I'm really excited by the opportunities that it gives us to talk about our relationship, what it means to both of us, and what the history is.
Yeah, because there's actually a lot of alumni. I'm also one of the alumni graduating from Australia. There's actually 200,000 Indonesians who have studied in Australia. But Ambassador, the interesting thing is that actually the relationship between Australia and Indonesia goes beyond the 75 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's
It's like how long? Is it centuries ago, right?
It's centuries, and we're neighbours. I mean, it's just a reality that we're neighbours, and the people of Makassar for centuries have been travelling to Australia to look for trepang. And there's a relationship between the people of Northern Australia, Aboriginal Australians, and the people of Makassar. And there's more and more research being undertaken to get a sense of those personal links. There's still words in languages in Northern Australia, Aboriginal languages, that come from Makassar. I think that londo is a word for white person, which I think comes from Belanda.
Yeah, londo.
So there's all these cultural ties that go back. So I was so pleased when the Prime Minister Albanese, came here on his first visit 2 weeks after he became Prime Minister. He deliberately didn't just go to Jakarta, he went to Makassar because he wanted to celebrate that relationship that stretches back before the colonial period, which is also so important to the relationship.
Yeah, back to the history right there.
Yeah.
And definitely in commemoration of the 75 years of bilateral relationship between Indonesia and Australia, and 20th of May, the Governor General,
that's right,
the Honorable General David Hurley came here to the Bogor Presidential Palace to have discussion also with President Joko Widodo. Can you elaborate more? What kind of discussion and what can we strengthen also between Indonesia and also Australia?
Well, thank you very much. So the Governor General travels as our head of state. So it was really an honour for us to receive him here to celebrate the 75th anniversary of diplomatic relations. The Governor-General himself speaks Indonesian.
Yes.
He's very committed to the relationship, and he is the patron of the Australia-Indonesia Youth Exchange Program, the Australia-Indonesia Muslim Exchange Program. He's also the patron of IKAHAN, which is a defence alumni. So he was very much stressing and highlighting in this 75th anniversary year the people-to-people relationships, the things that we do between young people, the things that we do between our defence forces. That stretches back. So very much focused on what is it that's the backbone, what is the depth of our relationship. It's the relationship between alumni, it's the relationship between young people. So it was fantastic to have him
definitely here. After you said also this is taken back more than 75 years. So we already had seeded, you know, it's growing and blossoming between our relationship between the two nations.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, not only between the two nations, because Indonesia and Australia are also focusing on ASEAN.
That's right.
So how are the two countries working together within ASEAN?
So this is a big year for anniversaries. It's actually the 50th anniversary this year of Australia's relationship with ASEAN, when we first became a dialogue partner with ASEAN. And to recognise that, earlier in the year, Prime Minister Albanese held a summit, the Australia-ASEAN Summit in Melbourne, and for ASEAN leaders, and we were so pleased that President Widodo was able to attend that. So that was also a celebration, but also to talk about what more can we do together going forward, with a very big focus on economic engagement, the economic engagement between Australia and ASEAN countries, obviously including Indonesia. So as part of that, I'm very pleased that I've got what's called a deal team now in the embassy. That is a group of people, including from Export Finance Australia, to look at investment deals for Australian companies in Indonesia.
Yes.
We have a digital landing pad that's very much focused on how do we innovate in the digital space. So it's not just about looking back at what ASEAN has done for Australia's prosperity in the region, for ASEAN prosperity in the region, but what do we do going forward? And it's very much about how do we drive economic engagement.
And also there seems to be this year, I don't know if this year in particular, Ambassador, that Australia is also trying to promote Western Australia this time economically. Is that true?
So I think all of the states and the territories, we see they've actually lots of them have offices in Jakarta. They very much understand their relationship with the region. Obviously, in the case of Western Australia, it's a 3.5-hour plane trip from from Perth to Jakarta. They have a sister province relationship with Eastern Java, but a number of states and territories are very active in looking at business opportunities, in particular what they can do together.
Yeah, and speaking of relationship, you have a personal relationship with Indonesia, actually. Let's go way back, way back. Ambassador Penny Williams used to go to school for 1 year in Indonesia. What was your experience? Tell us about that.
So it was a long time ago, as you said. I was but something that's still really important for me. I was an exchange student in the early 80s. I came to Jakarta for 1 year. I lived with an Indonesian family, and I went to SMA 1 PSKD, Jalan Diponegoro, di depan Rumah Sakit Cipto, and I was 16 years old, and it was a life-changing experience for me to live and speak Indonesian only for a year. And I learnt Indonesian. I feel like I know Jakarta in a way because of, I have a feel for Jakarta. It's a bit like old school Jakarta though. Like I'm an expert in Pasar Baru and Blok M.
PSKD 1 terkenal sama basketnya itu. It's the basketball team, by the way, until now.
So it was an amazing experience, and to be, because of that experience, I actually chose to, I'm from Tasmania, I chose to move to what we would call the mainland. I moved to Canberra and studied Indonesian at university, and then full circle, and I'm here now as ambassador. So it was very much a life-changing experience. And that's why I actually really believe in people-to-people. It's not just, I'm not just saying it, we can throw the phrase around, but I actually really believe that people engage with each other makes a difference. Just if you can just understand one thing or two things, or see something from somebody else's perspective. Part of the backbone of our relationship is education. It's not just people who've studied in Indonesians who've studied in Australia, but young people coming here on exchange.
Yes.
Something that's happened that's quite remarkable in the last couple of years has been the establishment of Australian universities. So Monash has been here for a couple of years, but now we have Deakin University opening in Bandung, University of Western Sydney opening in Surabaya, and that gives the opportunity to a greater number of people to have an Australian education, but without leaving Indonesia. So for me, those things actually, they're not just life-changing, they're game-changing in the way that we can actually understand each other. So yeah, I feel really quite strongly about that because I know the difference it's made to my life and my understanding. I always tell those things of, my Indonesian is okay, but there's some things that I know in Indonesian that I don't even know what the word is in English, like gemes.
Yes.
Like things that you just have a feel for. What is the thing that you, and I'm sure from your experience in Australia, there's some things that you just know. You know about, you know, but you can't quite, it's about the feel.
It is about the feel.
And also vice versa, if I'm not mistaken, Ambassador Penny, that also some curriculum in Australia, one of it is also Bahasa Indonesia. And we heard that there's a lot of animosity of people wanting to learn about Bahasa Indonesia.
So I think that there's, there's lots of kids learn Indonesian in school. Unfortunately, not as many as perhaps they did because there's lots of other languages that young people are learning. But I do think it's really important that young people have an opportunity to learn Indonesian. I think it's probably worth mentioning that the numbers of Australian visitors to Indonesia is at its record high. It's higher than even before the pandemic. So we have about 1.4 million visits to Indonesia. Almost all to Bali, of course, but out of a population of 25 million people, that's quite a lot of people. And those people get a little bit of a feel for Indonesia, and they have a sense of the fact that what it is, a cultural sensibility, and I think that's really important.
And speaking of cultural sensibility, after this we will also speak to one of Australia's best cinematographer, underwater cinematographer, Rifici, who actually lived in Bali for 12 years. So it's like people to people.
Culture to culture, right?
Exactly.
Ecosystem right there.
And you're also the first Australian ambassador for women and children. So what are your thoughts on gender equality, women empowerment issues nowadays?
So I think that the empowerment of women and girls should sort of inform all the work that we do, and in our engagement with Indonesia it does, and Indonesia's engagement with us it does as well. So we can't ignore particular parts, and we're so lucky we've got two very strong women foreign ministers in Ibu Retno and Ibu Penny Wong, who are very committed to those issues globally. I think that whenever we talk about issues related to women and girls, we need to recognise that no one country has this right. That all countries have issues related to inequality, violence against women, and lack of political representation. So we just all need to keep working together and thinking about and sharing the challenges and thinking through the ways that we work, and also listening to and seeing where the gaps are, seeing what it is that we can do together. But as I said, it's just amazing to have two wonderful, strong women foreign ministers representing our country.
Advocating, right? I mean, they are the role models, just like you, Ambassador Penny, also, right? The children now, or especially the girls, could see that there's just this powerful woman that can really advocate and voice out their opinions.
I guess we female leaders lead differently.
Well, I mean, look, honestly, I think the fact that I'm the first woman ambassador from Australia to Indonesia is a bit of a shame in one way. This is our biggest embassy in the world. Like, this is Australia's biggest embassy. It's one of our most important. This is a critical relationship. And the fact that it's taken this long to have a woman ambassador in such a senior role is not great. But I will not be the last. And so, as you said, hopefully I can be a role model to the young women who work in the embassy and to others who can see that actually it's normal. It's normal for children. it's normal, it's fine, because it is. You can't be what you can't see.
Yes.
And it's really important for younger women to be able, and younger men to see women role models in leadership, in leadership positions.
Absolutely. And tell us also about what's going on at the moment, Ambassador. Since the 31st of May, Festival Sinema Australia Indonesia began, and it's going to be there for about 3 weeks in 10 cities. So exciting. Tell us about it.
So this is the 9th year. It's the 4th film festival that I've been involved in, and every year I can see that it gets bigger. It's going to more cities this year. It's going to 10 cities, which is fantastic. Because it's really important that we get out of the big cities and that we get broader exposure. There's more workshops, master classes. There's a dome from Deakin University is very involved in it. But we're also talking about we're also looking at an Australia Awards short course later in the year for Indonesian filmmakers and those involved in the film industry. So it's really exciting. It's a range of films. So something to suit everybody. And look, I think that film is just a fantastic way to communicate between countries, or for people to understand. Once again, it's a feel. You can see something. It's not just about the words. Indonesia has a really dynamic film industry. Australia has a really dynamic film industry. It just seems a natural point for us to actually not just collaborate between our two film industries, but also for people just to have a picture of Australia, and also and vice versa. So it's really exciting. I love the film festival. I just think it's fantastic.
Interesting story, Ambassador. Marissa was actually the one that introduced me to this Festival Cinema, because she was like, "You have to watch Blueback. You have a daughter. You have to watch this. This would really kind of like engage yourself with your daughter."
Exactly.
And definitely, I'm going to have a date with Marissa for that movie. Maybe you can come along.
It's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Ambassador Williams. Success to you, the film festival, and all of these exciting projects. Australia Awards. I'm actually very excited about the latest program from Australia Awards, having short course in film production. Because if we see Australia, I myself also enjoyed the theater scene there. There's also a very good acting school there, NIDA, in Australia, and we can also see there's a lot of actor exports to Hollywood from Australia: Margot Robbie, Kate Blanchett, Hugh Jackman, and
Eric
so on and
Bana.
so forth. Eric Bana, your favorite.
Excuse me for that.
Very excited about Eric Bana. I can see there, Carol. Well, thank you so much, Ambassador.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me this morning.
Thank you for coming. But, you know, we will still talk about the film festival, because after this, I'm very excited. This underwater DOP or cinematographer, Rick Rifici, will be talking to us about his masterclass. Yes, that is going to happen this week in Jakarta, and also one is going to be in Lombok. So after the break.
Welcome back. Now it's time for our next talk show. Festival Sinema Australia Indonesia, or FSAI, is returning for its 9th year from May the 31st to June the 23rd. It'll showcase Australian and Indonesian movies in 10 cities across Indonesia, namely Jakarta, Bandung, and Yogyakarta, Padang, Surabaya, Mataram, Makassar, Manado, Samarinda, and Balikpapan.
I know, this is like cities, which is very exciting. And this year's festival is deemed very special because Indonesia and Australia celebrate 75th year of diplomatic relations. And a movie, of course, as Ambassador Williams said earlier, it is a powerful medium to create connections, people connections, and also promote understanding between the two countries.
And the festival kicked off with the Indonesian premiere of Blueback, a Western Australian movie that tells the story of friendship, family, and community. And this year's lineup also includes Petualangan Sherina 2, or Sherina's Adventure, that was produced by Indonesian filmmaker and Australian University alumna Mira Lesmana.
Yes, and moviegoers and students can also learn something new through the master classes, participating in learning how to storytell in a cinematic way, learning about film production, film archiving, planetarium filmmaking, with Australian experts and educators coming to the cities in Indonesia.
And now, joining with us today is one of the experts and award-winning Australian director of photography, Rick Rifici, who will discuss about the upcoming festival and his filmmaking journey. So good morning, Rick.
Thank you very much.
Nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Indonesia after living here for 12 years. I'm good, thank you.
I'm very excited to be back. I miss Indonesia. It's a very special place in my heart.
It is indeed. So, you were the underwater cinematographer for this film, this beautiful film Blueback that you have to watch, Tom. So tell us how you ended up being underwater DOP.
Well, I started, when I left school, I did a course in film and television. It was a 12-month course, and halfway through it, I was lucky enough to land a job for the Channel 10 network in Australia. So I worked in production, a lot of studio work, just very similar to this actually, morning shows, drama, travel shows, and then I probably stayed there for around about 8 years. Then I went to the 7 network, and in that transition, one of the networks had the broadcast rights to cover a world surfing event in Margaret River. I was a pretty keen surfer, and the producers sort of approached me, and I guess I was a perfect fit for the job. They asked me to do a water camera. And that was the start of it. I just fell in love with immersing myself into the ocean and being able to catch images and being able to show people what I saw from the water. And that was pretty much the beginning of it. I went freelance after that and did a lot of work for the major surf companies and energy drinks. And then back then there was no social media. So I was working with the world's best surfers. We're shooting everything on film, motion film, 35 and 16.
No GoPros at the time.
No GoPros at the time. No phones.
Like huge
pretty big cameras. But you know, as mentioned earlier, like off air, I mentioned to Marissa as well. Like I used to be a reporter to cover like travel and underwater programs.
Yes.
And I could see all my friends who actually recorded with, you know, like big equipments underwater. It's not easy, it's really hard. So how did you adapt with that from, you know, TV industry and then to underwater cinematography?
It's a good question. I mean, I found the transition quite easy because being a surfer, I was very comfortable in the water. The equipment back then was a lot bulkier and harder to use, whereas technology has changed that a lot these days. But I guess, as you said, it's very challenging, and I think that's what I found the most rewarding, was really challenging myself by submerging myself into Mother Nature, into the ocean. I mean, every day is different in the ocean. No waves ever the same, the conditions are never the same. And unfortunately, Mother Nature doesn't read scripts or that shot lists at all, so you're always continually adapting to try and capture the vision of the directors. And I really enjoy that challenge.
What was your experience shooting Blueback? Because as you said, Mother Nature, I mean, they have their own rule, they have their own timing. How was it? How was the experience?
Blueback was awesome. To be here in Indonesia again and having that as their headline film in the film festival. It's an honour for me to be able to showcase some of the underwater cinematography that I've shot. We shot that on the west coast of Australia. Pretty much 3 locations ranging from the deep south in Bremer Bay, where the main unit was set up. And then I would travel north to Ningaloo Reef, and also Rottnest Island. And basically that was trying to work with the most favourable conditions at the time during production.
Wow.
Yeah, wow, so you must be a good diver as well, huh?
Well, you have to. It helps.
But you know, can you tell us like what is your most memorable shots?
Oh wow.
It was like painting the shots. I know. I
know it's hard to answer, but maybe is there something that actually...
I mean, everything's so different. There's different sorts of productions that I work on, from observational documentary to feature films, which are very scripted. And in every context, there's always something very special. But I'd have to say memorable are the big wave shots that I've captured, just because they're extremely dangerous. You're always chasing weather conditions and swells, and you're quite often or not a very small team capturing those images.
How small is the team? 3?
4? It's a good question again, because as far as safety goes, that's probably, it's ironic because there's probably less safety in the more dangerous jobs because they are dangerous compared to working on film sets where they're very controlled with water safety and etc. because you've got actors in the water. The big wave surfers are all professional, so they're quite capable of surfing and pushing themselves to the limits. But the element of danger there is probably what I thrive on a little bit. That sort of excites me. And also to be able to not miss any of the action in the water. I mean, those guys are putting their life on the line.
Wow.
So the last thing you want to do is not be in the right position or not be able to capture those images for them.
Yeah.
So I'd have to say big wave surfing is probably the best thrill.
How do we, I mean, there is a kind of certification, right, to be an underwater cinematographer?
Yes.
I mean, tell us about that. What is the process? I mean...
So I basically work on a diving certificate, which is pretty much recreational.
Okay, all right.
So
Open water one?
Open water, correct.
Okay.
Yep. But obviously that involves a totally different setup to shooting the observational documentary stuff, such as big waves, because you're weighted up. You need neutral buoyancy underwater for yourself and for your camera equipment.
Yes.
And you have a buoyancy vest, so you can balance yourself with air, either releasing it out or pumping air into your vest to stay natural in the water.
Yes, yes.
And when you're shooting surfing, you have none of that. So all you have is a camera which is quite heavy, but you don't want any sort of buoyancy, so you want to be able to get underneath the waves.
Wow.
So when you get to the bottom, there's a little spot under all the turbulence and all the chaos that's above you of the wave, and that's a really quiet, peaceful place. And if you do it right, it just spits you out the back, and it can feel really cool. If you do it wrong,
you're telling me.
Things don't go so good,
Oh no.
So they're both different sort of, both different. They're both different in their own way. I enjoy doing both of them.
Yeah, and you're going to be teaching because you're going to have 2 master classes, one in Jakarta and if I'm not mistaken, one in Lombok. What are you going to share in the master?
Well, I'm going to, as the ambassador mentioned, it's a great way to communicate between the 2 countries. And I'm here to help out any young people or anybody that's interested in getting in film and television, and if I can help with my expertise in any way, that's great. And I'm going to be talking about basically the different formats of shooting, whether it's for feature film, which is very scripted and rehearsed, observational documentary, which is more being one step ahead of what's happening, because once it's happened, you already miss it, so you can't go back and set it up again. And the third one, television commercials, top-end television commercials, and the different cameras I use and how I approach each one of those productions.
Wow.
But have you seen maybe local Indonesian talent that actually in this type of like cinematography, like underwater?
Yeah, I mean, the archipelagos of Indonesia are absolutely beautiful and stunning. You know, there's so many nice islands around here to capture. And I have spoke to a couple of people doing a few Q&As for Blueback that I've worked with before when I was living in Bali, shooting different music clips and TV commercials. So yeah, hopefully there'll be some inspiring cinematographers that'll come along to the master classes, and I can meet them then.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, thank you so much, Rick.
Thank you very much
for sharing.
All the best for the master class.
Exactly, and for those of you film students, or for those of you who are not film students yet, but also want to learn the technical side of filmmaking, you can definitely check out the dates of the master classes. You can find all the dates, FSAI or FSAI.id. Thank you so much, Rick.
Thank you.
Thank
Best of luck with the master class.
Thank you.